like the third time, every time I hear that sound, I'm hearing more. I'll put it to you that way.
Yes.
What's your biggest concern for the Raiders? And obviously, feel free to react to that as well.
The biggest concern is the man that's at the top, and that's Josh McDaniels. And here's why. Last year, the Las Vegas Raiders went through a year unlike any other for any other team, any other locker room.
That's right.
You have John Gruden, who was fired over the emails that he sent, and we understand what those emails contained, what type of human it ended up showing that John Gruden was that was running that team. So now you have to go to a special teams coach in Rich Bisaccia to be the head coach of the team. You also deal with the Henry Ruggs situation, which was a tragedy in so many ways, with 2 lives lost now. One, obviously, for the fatal accidents, and then Henry Ruggs no longer being able to play and also being prosecuted. Derek Carr showed that he was the leader of men last year. Derek Carr kept this locker room together. Derek Carr got this team to the playoff, and so did a special teams coach that had never been a head coach in his life, that had never been an offensive or a defensive coordinator. None of us were regarding him this amazing football mind, but he kept this team together. This team ain't together. You know how I know this team ain't together? One, your quarterback is crying at the podium. And I first thought to myself, okay, Derek Carr keeps talking about, like, what he got to do to practice. Everybody got to do that to practice.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, you know how many nights I couldn't sleep? How many nights I knew that Troy didn't get an opportunity to rest because he had to get treatment in order to be able to walk to work? That made sense to me. I was like, all right, Derek Carr, you're telling me you play football. And then he said what some of us
That's right.
are doing to be at practice. And what I feel about losing, I wish everybody felt that way.
Yep.
Oh, so what you're telling me is everybody ain't in. What you're saying is that it's you and maybe Devontae and then maybe the Max Crosbys of the world.
That's right.
Maybe those dudes care. But you feel like it's some other people over there that ain't putting their hands in the pile.
Yep.
And when you're losing, that's exasperating, right? Because when you're losing and I see that you ain't putting the work in like I'm putting in, now I have more resentment to you. That resentment shows itself on the grass, right? That resentment makes you feel it. That resentment to say, you know what? You might be open, but I know 17 been working. I'm going to get him to rock. You know what? You might have an opportunity to blitz, but I'm going to bring this other guy because I see you not doing it. Derek Carr has a problem with the players on his team. I have a problem with the coach.
That's what I was going to say. But doesn't that fall on the coach if the players aren't all in?
But isn't that supposed to be what the Patriot way is like? We went on a training camp tour, right?
Yeah.
Every training camp we went to, whether it's Fred, Channing, me, we're on the field. We're talking to the players. We're talking to the coaches. We went to Las Vegas and they said, hey, Josh don't like that, right? You got to be here. And we understood, like that's the rules.
Yeah.
But it was a looseness because we were former players everywhere we went. The Patriot way, the Josh McDaniels way is tight. Well, if it's tight and you're going to make sure you're tight on the media, you better make sure you're tight on the players because that's how you win games. And this team is terrible. Actually, Jeff tweeted that in October. The Raiders looked horrible. Look at this. Weeks later, he's the head coach of the team that's beating them.
You know, and I'm dead serious. I'm not going to joke around when I say this because I think this is a serious subject that needs to be addressed, you know. I love what you just did, but I want to use this as a teachable moment when it comes to people who are reporters. People don't realize that people who are reporters and report on these games, the kind of conversation you just had over national television is the kind of conversation we have in that locker stall in the locker room when it halfway empties out and people disappearing if you've cultivated enough relationships. The kind of conversation that Derek Carr revealed publicly is the kind of conversation that's usually reserved for those moments. And you usually got a heads up. This is imminent. This is about to go down because you see the emotion swirling and fomented to such a degree that you know trouble is on the horizon. Now, I can go several levels when I'm looking at the Raiders. I could go to owner Mark Davis. What the hell did you get rid of Bisaccia for? He was 7-5. They did end the season winning 4 straight, get into the playoffs, and played a tough game against Cincinnati in the postseason. There was no reason. A couple of yards away from winning. There was no reason to get rid of him, but you decided to get rid of him for the supposed boy wonder that used to be the head coach in Denver that stunk up the joint, but it resurrected his name and his reputation because he went back to New England where he managed to help them win a few more Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. So we couldn't throw shade on the choice of Josh McDaniels because as a coordinator, he proved what he could do in terms of play calling and working with the greatest quarterback who ever lived. But when you're a head coach, you're a leader of men. Because the offensive and defensive coordinators, as far as we're concerned as reporters, we view them as scheme individuals, schematic dudes. This is how we're going to do. We're going to play call. This is what we're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. But they're not the one that galvanizes all the parts, bring it together, and plays the role of overseer to make sure that everybody that responsibility is allocated to are doing their jobs. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.